monthly breastfeeding webinar series. And this series is brought to you by Indiana Perinatal Network and in partnership with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and the Indiana WIC program and Indiana Breastfeeding Coalition. Do want to remind you today that our program does give SERPs, so you will be receiving 1 hour of SERPs, e-SERPs for that. And I'd like to introduce today's speakers. And our first speaker is Lori Nestor. So Lori is a registered dietitian who has worked for the Allen County, Ohio WIC program for the past 21 years. Also serving as the breastfeeding coordinator in that program for many years. Lori has a long history of a variety of volunteer service. Her breastfeeding service began when she volunteered to be a regional representative for the Ohio Breastfeeding Alliance, which is the state breastfeeding coalition. Lori is currently the chair of the OBA, and she has led this organization the last couple of years during a time of organizational transition. Lori describes herself as passionate about supporting breastfeeding families with a particular focus on advocating and impacting systems and structures to make more comprehensive breastfeeding friendly environments, most especially medical professionals, facilities, and other public health settings. She states that it's been exciting for her to see breastfeeding become a more prevalent topic, although she acknowledges that there's still much to be done. Our second speaker is Shannon McKinney-Schubert. She is particularly passionate about improving the health of women and their families, and to that end, she believes that breastfeeding is a public health imperative. She serves as the senior project manager for the Michigan Breastfeeding Network, Midwestern region representative to the United States Breastfeeding Committee, and also the chairperson of the Wayne County Breastfeeding Coalition. Shannon earned her master's in public health management and policy from the University of Michigan. Her previous professional roles include serving as a WIC coordinator in Detroit and as a consultant for Nemours Office on Children's Health Policy and Advocacy in Washington, D.C., and as a lead consultant for a national nonprofit consulting team. Her favorite role, however, is mom to her 3-year-old daughter, Samantha, and her 7-month-old son, Alexander. Before I introduce both of these women, I want to tell you that I am so excited to learn from them both. I consider both of our speakers today to be teachers, and they're people that I have looked to and the work that I do. I'm the director of breastfeeding services at Indiana Perinatal Network, and I definitely have networked a great deal with both of these women. So I'm excited for the opportunity for the people on the call today to learn from them. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Lori Nestor.
All right, let me, there. Okay, can everybody see my screen? I think we're good to go here. Oh.
I do want to say that if you have questions for Lori and Shannon, please feel free to type it into the question box, and we'll, if we have time, we'll be fielding those at the end.
All right. The project that I'm going to talk about is still somewhat in process. We kind of got jumped upon with some situations that happened in Ohio that we felt that we needed to respond to, and that started the creation of our toolkit, and we will continue to refine things and add things, I think, as time goes on, as we've had a chance to use them. But the first incident that happened, at least that we were involved in, I know, things happen in the news frequently where a mom has encountered some difficulty wherever she is with breastfeeding in public. The first one happened to a family that was in the Dayton, Ohio area, and they had been at their Jobs and Family Services office for an appointment. Mom and baby sat in the lobby as Dad went to get the car so that the baby could eat before they began the trip home. And while they were sitting there, a sheriff's deputy who happened to be in the lobby came over and was attempting to tell the mother that she couldn't breastfeed there, that she needed to go somewhere else because this was a public space. And he was looking it up on his phone, trying to prove that this was public indecency, and that's why she needed to leave. The mother knew that Ohio did have law protecting a mom's right to breastfeed anywhere that she has the right to be otherwise. And she was trying to pull up the Ohio law on her phone to show the sheriff that no, really, she did have the right to be here, and it was okay that she breastfed her baby sitting there. The security guard that was there, I think, felt caught kind of between the two, not wanting to speak up against what the sheriff was saying, but he may have known that, no, really, it was okay to be in the lobby breastfeeding. So the mother did file a complaint with the county office, which I think helped give it some attention through the county system, and then also reached out to a local La Leche League leader, Ann Davis, who represents La Leche League on the Ohio Breastfeeding Alliance and serves as our secretary. So we had some quick conversation about how to respond and how to be a help, gathered some additional information about the situation, and then made contact with the sheriff's department and the county office to discuss what we might be able to do to help them respond to this incident. And because Mom had filed a complaint, it had to go through several levels of review and discussion, and it couldn't be just swept under the rug or ignored, which we've seen happen in some other situations where they just want to pretend that it didn't happen. Then we also had conversation with the sheriff's department, and arrangements were made to provide some training to both facilities. The county had an in-person training with all of their county office managers, and that was delivered by a couple of our Ohio Breastfeeding Alliance representatives who are from that area. And they were able to have some conversation and give a presentation and answer questions with people in person. The sheriff's office requested a training that could be accessed via the computer or online and be done more on an individual basis, as getting all the sheriffs together was a much more complicated option for them. And so we were able to facilitate both of those requests and make trainings available. And hopefully both have continued to have that conversation about breastfeeding in public and how to respond. In the following February,
Lori,
yes, is some of my, I don't want to mess with the panel, the tool panel here. Some of my tabs are there, and I'm hating to, I don't want to accidentally disconnect myself trying to access some of the other.
So you just have 3 slides though, so I prefer that.
I just have 3 slides. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, that's all it is.
Yeah,
Yep.
I prefer that we don't lose you, so.
Yeah.
Sorry for the
Yeah, one of the places I wanted to be is behind that panel, so I don't want to mess with that.
Okay.
So the second incident happened the following February. I opened up Facebook as I was eating breakfast, just seeing what was happening that day before I got busy with other things. And I saw this picture there with a Facebook post of a woman dressed in a very nice gown, breastfeeding her baby. And it was at a museum in Cleveland. And she had been attending a wedding reception at that museum over the weekend and had sat down to nurse her baby while she was at the event. I think her family was taking pictures, and she had other children there and wanted to be right there where the family was. A staff member approached her and told her that it was against museum policy to breastfeed in a public area and that she should go to a private space that they had or the bathroom. And the mother declined. She said, nope, she was good where she was and would just sit there to finish. And the staff member left and went and got a manager or a supervisor and came back and approached the mother with the same message, that she really shouldn't be doing that there, that it was against museum policy. And some of the rationale was that it was a family museum and that she was protecting innocent children by not seeing breastfeeding. And the mom kind of looked at her and said, well, you know, this is a family thing that I'm doing here, and my children are right here, and there's actually nobody else around. And there's nude female figures in the museum. So the mom was a little stunned that a mother actually breastfeeding her baby would be considered improper in that facility. And she stuck her ground and said she was just going to sit there and finish, and the staff members just left and said, well, there's nothing else they could do, and left it at that. But the mother took this to Facebook and just posted a very nice note about her experience, and hoping that the museum would be able to change things so that in the future the other mothers wouldn't have to go through the same confrontation while at the museum. So I quickly jumped on Facebook and reached out to the mother and just introduced myself and offered you know, if there was anything I could do to help, or any other questions or anything else I could do, that I would be happy to do that. I also reached out to the museum and said who I was and offered assistance in responding to this if they were looking for help in coming up with some suggestions for what they might be able to do. And within about 15 minutes, I was on the phone with the museum director, who was frantically trying to figure out how to handle this in preparation for a call with her board of directors later that morning. And we had a very, very good conversation. I think it was fortunate that the museum director was a woman who had breastfed her children. So she understood breastfeeding. She understood why breastfeeding is important. And she also said, you know, this is a family-friendly museum. Of course breastfeeding is okay, even though the staff had said that there was a policy against it, because of course there was no policy. And so she was looking for, you know, whatever ideas that we could help provide to help, you know, make the situation better, and how to change things so that this wouldn't happen in the future. They did reach out to the mother and apologized very nicely, and the mother accepted that apology, and so they were all good to go, and no hard feelings there. However, the Facebook world just, you know, had hundreds of comments, probably thousands of comments, of just moms being outraged. How could they have a policy against breastfeeding, and how could this happen? And, you know, kind of raining down the court of public opinion on this museum. So the museum director and I discussed being able to offer some training, and we, because we had started to put together training for the incident the previous fall, we had a good start on what we would want to use for the museum. And we had local lactation consultants that are coalition members, as well as Ohio Lactation Consultant Association members in the Cleveland area, who were willing to get together and help actually conduct the training. And we talked about some other things that they could do to help patrons, as they came into the museum, recognize that breastfeeding was accepted there, through posting the international breastfeeding symbol in different places. They could put things on their website, on their brochures, just different signage that would indicate a private place to nurse if a mom wanted that. And then also making sure that staff, you know, realized that no, they didn't have to go there, and that they were actually welcome to breastfeed anywhere in the museum. We also talked about other ways of celebrating breastfeeding through either displays that would be at the museum in the future. There's a local 5K milk run that the lactation consultant group in that area holds, actually in the vicinity of the museum. And we talked about ways that they could help sponsor that, or host other celebrations during breastfeeding, World Breastfeeding Week or Breastfeeding Awareness Month, as we celebrate here in Ohio. So for the museum, they ended up doing 2 presentations that were prepared and delivered by various lactation consultants in the area. And the museum staff also invited staff from the other museums that are in that area to do a joint training, so that they could get as many of their museums in that little neighborhood on board as much as possible. The two presentations that we've done are available on the Ohio Breastfeeding Alliance website, which is www.ohiobreastfeedingalliance.org. And we have those up and hope to add some other information as we go along, just so that there's more things available for either a mom that's in that situation or for people that are trying to work with businesses. The Best for Babes hotline does have a 1-800 number as well as some tips. I recommend, making contact with management before we go to Facebook or other social media sites to complain about an agency. Often it's a staff issue, not a policy issue. And, whenever possible, if you can have other lactation consultants or other people help advocate for mom, that can be really helpful. The other project that we've worked on is a breastfeeding services directory, and it was a project that we had identified through the board of OBA as being something that would be helpful in Ohio as more hospitals are providing breastfeeding services, and we have a vast network of WIC counties and peer helpers and other local groups such as La Leche League and other people that are involved in breastfeeding, but to be able to have a statewide database we thought would be helpful, especially as we also have our bigger hospital centers with NICUs where a lot of our babies from the more rural areas go if they're preemies or have health issues, and those lactation consultants look for services in mom's local area to give referrals and to make connections so that we can try to provide a seamless transition from a NICU to the home. I asked one of the local breastfeeding coalitions who was especially excited about this project to give some thought to what they would like to see in the database and how they might see it implemented, and started with just a simple spreadsheet to collect some information. And then my husband does computer programming and has some of that expertise, so I consulted with him to talk about how we might make this work and how it would look and what we would need to do to pull this off. We don't have funds at this moment to to purchase a fancier database or tie in with another system, although that may be something that we can do in the future. So we were looking for something that could be put together fairly quickly and inexpensively and able to maintain without a lot of complicated doings to make that work. So what we've come up with, and this is also on our website, and I have just a screenshot from the page, is a searchable database. People can either put in the zip code that they are looking for, or you can click on the map and it will pull up through the magic of GPS coordinates from the addresses. It will pull up what services that are in your area, and then give a mileage listing. So, I mean, you can see, if you scroll down, you can see what's there for quite a distance, but especially what is close to you. We are focused mostly on the services that are available and keeping a very brief description of what is there, but also including contact information, address, and then any website or Facebook or other information that would be needed to access the more specific details of what you are needing. And we did that so that the maintenance of the database is not in OBA's lap to keep up with, my La Leche League group has now changed to a different church and we meet on a different night, or the breastfeeding clinic at the hospital now meets at this time and in this location, because I know in my area some of these things do change details fairly frequently. So we've made it so that you can locate the services and see the contact information, see a brief description of what is available, and then you click on their website or their Facebook page or call their number to get the more nitty-gritty details about how one would then access the services and what times, what other specific details. We have a form below the website or below the map for people to add additional services or to go in and edit the services. At this time, it does not edit automatically. It comes to an email address and then we make the changes, and that will be excuse me, something that we will look at as this develops, how we can keep this as an ongoing database and how we will manage that. I think that's the nuts and bolts of what I had to share with you. Both of these are works in progress, and they didn't start as any grand organized structure of a project. They were both meeting kind of needs that showed up at different times, and we're kind of seeing how things go as they progress, and hopefully we'll see how they develop. I will turn the presentation now over to Shannon if she is ready.
Hi everybody, is my screen showing? We good?
Yes.
All right, good deal. Well, hi everyone, thanks so much for joining today. I'm really excited to talk with you about our Breastfeed Anytime, Anywhere social marketing initiative. Like Tina mentioned, I'm Senior Project Manager with the Michigan Breastfeeding Network, and as you can see from this picture, I'm also mom to 2 munchkins. And actually, Alexander's with me right now resting. He's teething and a little grumpy, so the little guy is being worn right now. So bear with me as we go through. Many of you may also remember that I also served as Chief of Staff for Cofective for 2.5 years. I know in Indiana, Ryan Comfort is near and dear to many of you, and he definitely is to me too. And even though I'm no longer at Cofective, our partnership in the Michigan Breastfeeding Network, which I'll speak about later, and then also just the incredible experience of serving on that team has certainly informed the work that we're doing now. Throughout this presentation, you're going to see themes from Cofective like collective impact, social marketing, and BJ Fogg's behavior change model that are also laced throughout all of their materials and presentations and things. And so if you recognize some of these, then you understand that they've translated nicely into our work at the network. So today, as I set out to structure this talk, I really had 3 goals in mind. So the first is to share with you about the Michigan Breastfeeding Network and provide you some context for our work. The second is to describe one of our current impact areas aimed at creating a culture of breastfeeding anytime, anywhere in Michigan. And the third is to structure this talk in a way that gets you thinking about things that you can do at your own organization. Maybe for Michiganders on the call, that'll involve engaging with our project. But I hope for everyone that you'll be able to apply some of what we've done to your other work and help you to unlock ideas to advance your own initiatives. I'm going to provide my contact information again at the end so we can connect later if you want to. All right, so with that, let's dive in. So to give you a little context for the Michigan Breastfeeding Network, or MIBFN, our mission is to optimize state and community support for breastfeeding by leading collaborative actions for education, advocacy, and coalition building. We're a systems level partner for local stakeholders. We don't offer direct support. Our role is really to improve the systems that impact mothers' ability to breastfeed. And I say we don't offer direct support, but truthfully, if a mom calls with a need, certainly we help them. But we really see ourselves, and our partners see us as their systems level partner. So a little bit about the network. We're Michigan's statewide breastfeeding coalition, or network of moms, advocates, breastfeeding leaders, business leaders, health professionals, religious leaders, educators, etc. We welcome into our network anyone who considers himself or herself a breastfeeding stakeholder. So folks link up to us through our newsletter, our social media, our website, at events and conferences, and then through their local coalitions. Our leadership team is, as you can see, around the state. We became a 501c3 in 2012, and we have an amazing 9-member board of directors and a pretty enthusiastic 5-member staff with wide-ranging expertise. Many of you are probably familiar with our co-chairs, Dr. Paula Schrack from the St. John Providence Health System and Cofective, and also Julie Lothamer. She's the Breastfeeding Peer Counselor Coordinator for the Michigan WIC Division. Our board and staff live and work throughout the state of Michigan and really bring a diversity of experiences and regional perspectives to work for our organization. So in Michigan, we have a robust network of 20 active local coalitions, and we recently actually began a concerted effort to grow that number. We understand that coalitions are the backbone of collective impact efforts and the engines by which real change can be achieved in our communities. So we cultivate interest and help establish new coalitions wherever there is engaged leadership. We actually helped 3 new coalitions form in the past year, and we have 4 more who've indicated interest for this year. And then we also have these coalitions, these 20 that are already really active, and we work with them to build their capacity and sustainability through technical assistance and best practices sharing. We structure our work in advocacy and education around the intent to facilitate implementation by local leaders. So we build out our projects. We implement a lot of the work of our projects, but everything we do is built with the intention that we'll educate our local leadership to carry out much of the work within their own communities. So within our mission of education, advocacy, and coalition building, MABFN focuses on 3 primary impact areas. The first, and the one we'll focus on today, comes directly from the vision of creating a breastfeeding supportive culture, and we call this impact area Breastfeed Anytime, Anywhere. The second area relates to our ability to impact quality improvement measures related to maternity care practices, and we call these our 310 Connect projects because they catalyze alignment around steps 3 and 10 of the Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative. Step 3, of course, relates to prenatal education, and step 10 relates to community breastfeeding support after hospital discharge. So our strategic partners for all 310 Connect initiatives are Michigan WIC, because obviously, they see so many of our families, 53% in Michigan, and then also Cofective. And then the third impact area doesn't actually have I'm smiling a little because it doesn't have a snappy name yet, but the efforts are really exciting. We currently call it Workplace. And Workplace encompasses all the things that impact a mother's ability to meet her breastfeeding goals. So we do work within childcare for the, the break time for nursing mothers law, and we're working on a snappy name like Anytime, Anywhere or 310 Connect, because we actually just received a grant to do coalition leader training and tools around child custody, jury duty, and incarceration. So stay tuned. Cool name coming soon, and something that relates to, breastfeeding duration and mothers achieving their duration goals. But that's kind of our third bucket of impact. So, all right, enough about our organization. Let's transition to the core of why you're here, and that's really to learn about our Anytime, Anywhere. So it started with really exciting an advocacy win for our network of breastfeeding stakeholders called the Michigan Breastfeeding Anti-Discrimination Law. In partnership with statewide and local stakeholders, MIBFN led advocacy days in Lansing, and local coalitions and mother-to-mother groups attended. They called their state legislators, wrote sign-on letters. I know this from my work with the Wayne County Breastfeeding Coalition. We actually got 300 signatures. I'm very excited about that. And we just, at the state level through our advocacy, but then also at our local level, we worked really hard to get this law signed in 2014. The law basically states that a woman who's breastfeeding must be given all the same rights and privileges and same services she'd be given if she were not breastfeeding. And if she's not, and a complaint is filed, then the company or person at fault could be fined. And we're so pleased to have this protection in Michigan. We were something like the 45th state or something really far down the line to get it. But we're so pleased to have this protection because, it means that there's really some traction behind a mother saying that she can breastfeed anytime, anywhere. But now that that protection is in place, we've transitioned from advocating on behalf of the law to now educating mothers and communities about what that means to put it into practice. And so we've started this social marketing campaign called Breastfeed Anytime, Anywhere to get that moving. So in order to structure the social marketing campaign, we looked at the CDC Guide to Strategies to Support Breastfeeding Mothers and Babies. Strategy number 8 is social marketing. And in a nutshell, that says is social marketing seeks to bring out voluntary behavior change through comprehensive, multifaceted approaches that provide coordinated intervention to specific audiences. So you can see our tagline is simple: breastfeed anytime, anywhere. Everybody gets it. I joke, my husband's an engineer. He's interested in breastfeeding because, I nurse our kids. But even he gets it, you can look at those words, those 3 words together, and you know what we're trying to say. And so For this, our vision is that in every Michigander, when they hear the word breastfeeding, their mind will immediately transition to thinking anytime, anywhere. We want them to see the message, we want them to hear the message, and we want them to live the message everywhere they are. Breastfeed anytime, anywhere. And of course, you all, from your professional perspective, whether you're a lactation consultant, a hospital or WIC, or an employer seeking to retain a quality workforce, you also know that this is an evidence-based practice. Breastfeeding happens anytime, anywhere. We want babies to be fed on cue, anywhere and anytime the need arises. And we want employees to express milk for their babies every time the need arises. So even though this is a campaign on its own, it certainly supports our vision of a breastfeeding supportive culture and the evidence-based nature of the other two impact areas that we work on. So most of you are probably familiar with the 5 conditions of collective impact: common agenda, common progress measures, mutually reinforcing activities, communications, and a backbone organization. These are, USBC has worked really hard to communicate these, and I think that's just kind of the lingo in our community now. But one of the things that backbone organizations, which we at the network see ourselves obviously as a backbone organization, we often fail to prioritize at the outset of our efforts these quick wins. The original article from the Stanford Review outlines the necessity of giving stakeholders a quick victory. And so all of our projects are full of quick wins because it's these quick wins that motivate stakeholders to stay engaged in future projects. I really appreciated some of the things that Lori was saying about, these negative experiences that happened. We really have found that the quick wins give people the energy and the motivation to just keep going and keep pushing this message of breastfeeding anytime, anywhere forward. So we've found that they motivate stakeholders to engage in future projects and also help them to see their capacity for catalyzing large-scale change. So anytime we build a project, but especially for Breastfeed Anytime, Anywhere, we're thinking about ways that coalitions can do this as a standalone project to integrate into their current projects. And we keep in mind BJ Fogg's model of behavior change that says give specific ideas, make it easy, and trigger behavior. So we've built our tools that are simple to use, and the message is clear. Breastfeeding happens anytime, anywhere. So this first one is our Paint the Town. This is our clings. So the most basic of our tools is the Anytime, Anywhere clings. These are window clings that are free to order on our website. Most coalitions have very low budgets. I can speak for ours, for a very long time it was about $300. So it's not as though they have funding to, purchase large-scale their tools. But we make these free, and you can order them on our website. We encourage coalitions, businesses, and anyone who'd like to order these to use or distribute to do that through our simple online form. And the vision is really to paint the town with this message that breastfeeding happens anytime, anywhere. One key educational piece that we also reinforce with these clings is that they do not indicate breastfeeding welcome here. It's a really important distinction because in Michigan, breastfeeding is welcome everywhere. The law protects it. So these clings just indicate kind of an above and beyond, additional support, but this is not, display a cling if you welcome breastfeeding, because you all welcome breastfeeding. You're in Michigan and the law says so. So we have to be very, very clear about that. The second one is, and so that those clings are really more like the organization and the business tool, or, stick them in your car, that kind of thing. This tool that I'm showing you here, our License to Breastfeed, is really the mother tool. So these License to Breastfeed cards are available on our website. And they're great little tools to give moms who breastfeed in public but want some sort of comfort measure to give them the words they need in case someone asks them to cover up or go somewhere else. I know this from personal experience that even though every single day of my life, professionally and personally, I am an advocate for breastfeeding mothers, when I'm in a personal breastfeeding situation with, with my Xander, it can be hard to find the words. So these are really handy to just kind of stick in your purse and have a little support system should the need arise and a mom is at a loss for words. So again, it's very important to tell moms. We've actually had a few people from out of state who've seen these email us and say, hey, I'm coming to Michigan and I need my license. It's really important to tell moms this is not like a driver's license. You don't need this to breastfeed in public, but it's just a toolkit to have in your toolbox in case you lose your words when you need them. It gives you all the information that you need, including a specific reference to the law about how the right is protected. Another one that we have is our pledge to support. This is a little screenshot of the button on our website that you can click to take the pledge. This is our online pledge. In fact, if you want, you could take it now by visiting our website. And we also provide a QR code on all of our printed materials just to make it super simple to access. The pledge is simple. It just says you or your organization support the right to breastfeed anytime, anywhere. And we've been collecting signatures for a couple of months now. And then the last tool that we have is our Coalition and Advocate Toolkit. And this is actually adopted from something that the Louisiana Breastfeeding Coalition shared with us. They are an amazing partner. And they shared this with us as one of their outreach efforts for local coalitions. This shows what a business can do above and beyond. So, like, for example, if you see a nursing mother, offer her a water bottle, or, you know, if someone asks you for a private space, what would be an appropriate accommodation to offer her? You know, just kind of little nuggets of ideas for how to go above and beyond to accommodate women who want to breastfeed, but then it also references the law and explains what's the obligation of businesses and organizations in Michigan to support a woman's needs to breastfeed wherever she is. So all of our communication tools for this project reinforce the calls to action and the simple nature of participating in this project. As part of her education on adult learning principles, Kathy Crothers shares that you have to see messages 7 times in order to take action on them. So we reinforce the tools for the Breastfeed Anytime, Anywhere message consistently in all of our communication. And we keep that rule of 7, trying to make sure that we're hitting each of our network members and stakeholders 7 times with these messages. And so you'll notice actually throughout this presentation, I hope you haven't gotten annoyed, but I've said breastfeed anytime, anywhere many times. That's intentional. So the first one that you see, this is just the overview. This is the 1-page overview of the initiative. We print this and take this to our exhibits and to our local coalition meetings. The entire second and third column is all just calls to action on how to engage with the initiative. And I cut it off on the screen, but actually it also has the QR code on it. So if somebody sees this, they can sign the pledge right away. We also layer on top of that our social marketing. We have a really active Facebook page with a few thousand members, and you know, sometimes it's moms, sometimes it's business leaders, whoever, but we post on there with weekly posts about instructions to use the resources, contests for businesses that display their cling, and then information about the importance of feeding on cue. Our website also has the whole left column is links to direct action, like signing the pledge, seeing who else has signed the pledge, ordering clings, and so on. And then our monthly newsletter actually parallels the website and includes the same calls to action each month. And then with our cling mailings, when folks order clings, we actually send them a letter that has additional things that they can do using the clings and other ways to engage with the project. One of the things we also include on this is an information about how to donate to the network in case someone's interested in offsetting the cost of the clings. So some of our wins so far. So we've actually sent out over 3,000 clings. We're very excited about that. 75 shipments to counties all over the state. So we know that, you know, folks are hearing about the project and they're interested. I actually was at a training yesterday and somebody came up to me and said, "Oh my gosh, I just saw this in a business window and didn't know that it was the network. How cool." So we know that it's getting out there. And then we've also had 126 organizations and individuals sign our pledge, including, I'm a state grad, so I'm very proud of this, Michigan State University signs, 2 breweries, which I thought was awesome, and a church. So, I mean, you know, we've really gotten some diverse stakeholders to sign on to this and recognize that, you know, the need to breastfeed anytime, anywhere. So we have a few opportunities. One thing is that we always offer our local coalitions the opportunity to co-brand or change the materials however they want to. And I actually, in doing research for this presentation, found this picture. The Breastfeed Macomb Coalition actually took the design file for our clings, blew it up, made this sign, and stuck it outside the depot. This is a really famous structure in Detroit. Stuck it outside the depot for one of the health campaigns that's been going on in the city. And then another thing that we'll be working on soon is we're actually creating a store, an online store to buy baby products. We've gotten a lot of requests for these, so we're going to offer them online and see if people purchase. So that's actually all I am, I'll just leave you to look at this beautiful picture of gorgeous mama and baby. And my email is down at the bottom. If you would like to email me with questions or stay connected or anything, please feel free. Shannon@mibreastfeeding.org.
Thank you, Shannon. I invite people on the call to type in any questions that you have for Lori or Shannon. We do have time for questions. But while I'm waiting to see if there are any questions, could you go to the next slide? I want to remind you about next month's speaker. So the way that our calls are set up is that on even months like this month, we have a community focused call, and on odd months we have a clinical call. So the call for May, it will be May 16th from 1 to 2. And it is going to be Breastfeeding 101, Answers from an Expert with Dr. Colleen Berry, who is the state of Michigan, works for the State of Michigan Office for Medical Affairs. And so I'm particularly excited about this call because we survey you at the end of the call, and we take those surveys and really look at them closely. And then we go out and look for speakers that can cover some of the topics that you request. And there were quite a number of requested requests for just a basic, I don't know, a grab bag of breastfeeding clinical information. So we've actually made that request to Dr. Berry, and I've seen her presentation, and it just is all over the place with lots of great topics covered. So we hope you can join us next month. And also to tell you that you can register in advance. And again, that will be giving an hour of free LSERP. So this program was started about 5 years ago, primarily because as I was traveling around the state of Indiana, people were telling me that they were letting their CLCs lapse, or they still needed credits to sit for the IBCLE exam. And so we were looking for a way to provide very convenient free SERPs to people, and also raise the level of education. And so I invite you to go on the Indiana Perinatal Network website, go under events, and you'll see the breastfeeding webinars in there, and you can go and register for them to the end of 2017. And I will tell you that we've worked hard. We worked with the Michigan Breast Department of Health and the Indiana Breastfeeding Coalition partnered with developing what I think is a pretty robust curriculum. So check that out. And let me see if we have any questions. Okay, here we go. Okay, wow, all right. So the first one is, are the CLINGs available for organizations that aren't in Michigan, Shannon?
We can send CLINGs out. Just the only thing to be aware of is that they do say mibreastfeeding.org at the bottom. So if you don't mind sending traffic to our coalition, then certainly. But the other thing is we can also work with you, sharing our artwork and other things to make it simple for you to order them if you'd like.
Great. Someone else asked, our coalition is having a hard time getting into business to present the toolkit. Do you have any recommendations of how to get to them?
Yeah, so back to that collective impact idea of quick wins, the first thing that we encourage coalitions to do is go to a business where someone has had a good experience and say, hey, someone's had a good experience here. We'd like to talk with you just a little more about, how you could do this at a company-wide level. Because what often will happen is somebody, so let's do the water bottle at the rest, at the business idea. So somebody sees a mom nursing and they give her a water bottle. That's usually the personal decision of a really nice employee, but it indicates that that's a business that's amenable to being breastfeeding, I don't want to say breastfeeding friendly, but you know what I mean. So anyways, go to a business like that and say, hey, so you've got great employees. Could we make this company wide? Could we get the, everybody on board? They often will say yes. And then you can kind of, it's sort of a soft launch for working on it. And again, you just get that feeling of like, all right, we did this, we can do this again. That makes it a lot easier to go into an organization that might not be quite as easy. Get a couple of quick wins under your belt, get a couple of organizations that, once they've done your advocacy toolkit with you, post like crazy on social media, tell everybody about how awesome they are, and make it so that, like if there's a local business that maybe has a competitor, find a way to make sure that the competitor becomes aware that you're sending out all this great social media praise for their competitor business. And then that makes it a little bit easier. So I think that's probably the easiest way to do it. The other thing that we recommend is that, go with people so that if somebody gets a little bit hung up on their words and, then you can have another person there right behind them, providing support. And that, again, if you're going into a few places and maybe one of them's not interested, it can be easier to have somebody with you to, debrief and think about strategies for going to the next place.
Those are great tips. Lori, also too, feel free to jump in if you have anything to add. But what I might add is I've been working with businesses for a number of years, and communities that I work in ask all the time, how do we find businesses? And a lot of those people are coalition members that work in hospitals, that work in WIC programs, doctors' offices. And I give them similar advice where I tell them to follow the Moms into Businesses of Opportunities. So if you have a mom in your WIC program or your physician office that tells you, a company she works at, and then you can question, well, how's that working out for you, or what's been your experience? And sometimes you can use that as a lead to a business to say, we service moms that have worked at your company, just offering to help, or if you have any questions. I also agree with Shannon that as a breastfeeding clinician, you're not always comfortable with finding the right words when you're working with businesses. So it does take a little bit of experience. And so I've never heard that before, but take a partner with you to complete your sentences is a really good suggestion.
Another thing you add too is the coalitions that have had the most success with doing the business advocacy toolkit are the coalitions that have lots of moms in them. Tina, you alluded to the idea of being breastfeeding clinicians. A lot of us are, but if we have people in our coalition, that's the point of bringing a whole coalition together of different voices. Moms can be some of the most amazing advocates because they say, hey, I shop here and I breastfeed my son. And that's how, and they start a conversation that way. So if you have any, support groups or any of your mom-to-mom stuff, and you just want to throw this out as an opportunity, you'll be surprised how quickly some of the moms, just on their free time, when they aren't necessarily people like us who are thinking about breastfeeding all the time, they will actually jump at the opportunity to go out and talk to people in their community.
Lori, did you have something to add?
Yeah, another thing you can try is see if you can give a presentation to your local Chamber of Commerce. Some of them are easier to get to than others. We have one here that I'm not sure why we're having feedback. One of our bigger city ones, they kind of expect money to get in front of the group, but some of our smaller communities, it's much easier to get in front of the Chamber of Commerce.
One of the things I did years ago was really a lot of work around workplace, and really got hooked up with SHRM, Society for Human Resources. Yes. And I had a presentation, and I probably gave that presentation at 10 or 12 SHRM's regional statewide meetings. So I could totally see where what you're doing would really be like, they love it. It's a free speaker, free education. So that's another opportunity to network with businesses.
But I think Shannon mentioned that, it's everybody knows that it's okay to breastfeed in Michigan, just as it is in Ohio. We have law protecting, but what we have found out recently is some business owners don't know. And our law has been in effect for a while. So one of my next projects is to see what we can do at the state level. I've seen a toolkit for how to start your own business and things you need to be aware of and things that you need to do. So I think that would be a good place to add a piece about the breastfeeding law, because we had a haircutting salon that we had an issue a couple weeks ago, and when they talked to the owner, she was not aware that it was state law. So I think that's another area that, would be good to try and be a little bit more encompassing, just even at the state level.
One of the things I love about the community focus months is that it provides a forum to ask all kinds of questions that come up in the community. And one person was asking how, if any today had any experience with baby cafes or drop-in centers where they had found a date or a time that was preferred that gave them a better turnout. So that seems to be the $1 million question, is what are the preferred times? Can either of you speak to that?
No.
Okay.
Well, although, some of it I think it's going to depend on your community, what's in your community and when things are open. And also, being open to looking at using, Facebook or, other social media avenues to connect with moms, just because that is such a prevalent way anymore of having connections.
I know that I worked personally on a project where we partnered with Walgreens to have a Well Baby at Walgreens, drop-in times where people can get their babies weighed. We've been doing it for several years, and we played with a lot of times, but we found that the late afternoon into the early evening, where people can pick their children up after work and come to the drop-in center. I hate to tell people who work in breastfeeding, that work all day long, that it represents an extended day to them, but really late afternoon to early evening would be my best suggestion from the experience that I've had out there. Okay, we have another question. Can Shannon restate the 3 marketing principles that you talked about? Make it easy, elicit action, etc. And who is the research person that this information is attributed to?
Yeah, so he's a researcher. His name is BJ, just the letters BJ, and then Fogg, Fogg. And I mean, you can just Google him. His website, I think, is bjfogg.org, maybe .com. I don't know. You'll find him. Anyway, the 3 principles are: get specific, make it easy, and trigger a behavior. So, when you're thinking about the like this campaign, make it easy, or I'm sorry, get specific is order clings, right? Make it easy. All they have to do is click a link and put in their information, and that triggers the behavior. And trigger the behavior we do through, sending out the repeated communication about it with active links. Like our newsletter will have an active link that all they have to do is click, fill out the information, and order clings. And so it's get specific, make it easy, trigger behavior. And it must be working, because my phone is blowing up. I am getting cling orders right now. I've gotten 3 since the presentation started. So keep them coming.
That's why these webinars are so great, because it just spurs people to action. And I've seen it, or we tell people about something they didn't know was out there. I do want to say that we've had I love it. It's creating a forum, because one of our highly successful breastfeeding coalitions in a local community in Indiana, Amanda, who I've worked with and know real well, typed in an answer to a previous question that they've had a nurse in chat for quite some time. when they moved it from 9:30 to 11:30 every Tuesday, they saw a 400% increase in attendance, and they attribute it to the fact that the key is having it weekly and keeping the time and place the same. So I hope that's helpful to the person that sent in the previous question. All right, we're coming to near the end of our time, and I wonder if last call for questions or if our speakers had anything else they wanted to add, other than, I think, Shannon, you're going to be busy filling some orders later today.
That's awesome. I welcome it. There was one thing I wanted to add to Lori's point about social media. One of the things that we've learned as a statewide coalition leader, and many of you probably manage communications pages and things for your organization, one of the things that we've learned is that the most productive output that we get from our social media posts is not necessarily those really, like, I'll call them like the sexy posts of, like, you know, oh, this person didn't let them breastfeed, or, oh, can you believe it that they show Victoria's Secret ads at the mall but moms can't nurse. Like, some of those posts, that those things go viral really quickly and can add to some of the heat around breastfeeding. Those are good, and we encourage people to share them, or, you know, within their own pages and things like that. But one of the things that we found that's had the most impact is we post resources. We post evidence-based information about feeding on cue. We post, you know, breast milk is not a biohazard, and here's the information on why, and, you know, those kind of things. Because as a statewide coalition, knowing that our posts will get shared too, we really want to be putting out there the opportunity for people to take action on some of the sexier stuff that they're seeing come through. You know, if somebody sees a post about why it's frustrating breastfeeding is not normal, we want to provide them what they can do to help make breastfeeding more normal. So I hope that's helpful. But as you think about, you know, the things you want to post and share on social media, and please do link to us. We're on Facebook and Twitter, so you can like or follow us. But, you know, you can share our posts too, some of that really educational, evidence-based information with specific calls to action to normalize breastfeeding.
Mm-hmm. I think that coalitions have a responsibility to be the voice of reason and to calm down some of the craziness that's out there with, like, real solutions. So I love those comments. I also, I think we have a closing question from Catherine. I'm assuming she's in Michigan. She wants to know if the law cards that you showed, if they could be ordered, and are they free?
So they're free to order yourself or print yourself. We have not yet placed it. These are actually very new. We just made them about a week ago. And so we haven't placed a large scale order for us to provide them. But if you go online, we actually provide two tabs. One is to print it yourself, and you can just, you know, grab a piece of cardstock or a nice piece of paper, print them and cut them, and they look really good. Or we also provide the file for you to print them, like from Vistaprint or something like that. Those are really cheap. Vistaprint lets you do, you know, hundreds of cards for very cheap. And I know there's a lot of other businesses. I don't have a specific Vistaprint connection, but that's what we've done in the past to get bulk orders of the cards for distribution. And that's currently how we're offering the clings. You can actually order the cling, like a physical cling, on our site. But the license to breastfeed, you have to either print yourself or order yourself.
Awesome. Well, that's the end of our questions, and we're coming to the end of our time. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. I'd like to thank our speakers. You were great. And invite you to join us in May on the 16th from 1 to 2 for Dr. Colleen Berry, a nice examination of a lot of clinical issues, many that I didn't know about. So I think you'll find it interesting. Please fill out the survey at the end of this call, and you will be receiving an email with your SERP in it. And remember, next month's call does give an LSERP. We'll see you next month.